Hello and welcome to a very exciting season 13 of Popcorn Podcast with Lee and Tim. I can't believe it. Season 13. That's
lucky 13.
Absolutely crazy. It better be lucky, not unlucky. Today, we're jumping into Twisters.
Twisters are doing it for themselves.
Nice.
I'm Timmy Fland, movie buff.
And I'm Lee Livingstone, entertainment journalist.
And we love to talk all things movies. All right, Lee, in Twisters, the long-awaited sequel to the 1996 original disaster flick starring Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton, a former storm chaser is lured back to the open plains to test a groundbreaking new tracking system. There, she crosses paths with a charming and reckless social media superstar who thrives on posting his dangerous storm-chasing adventures. As the storm season intensifies, competing teams fight for their lives as multiple storm systems converge.
Twisters is directed by Lee Isaac Chung from a screenplay by Mark L. Smith, who did The Boys in the Boat, from a story by Joseph Kosinski of Top Gun Maverick fame, based on characters created by Michael Crichton and Anne-Marie Martin.
Twisters stars Daisy Edgar-Jones, Glen Powell, Anthony Ramos, Brandon Perea, Maura Tierney, David Cornsweet, Daryl McCormack, Kiernan Shipka, Nick Dodani, and Katie O'Brien.
Before we jump into this review, Tim, I just have to express my gratitude to you for keeping the lights on with Popcorn Podcast over the last little while I've been dealing with some really personal things. And after just coming back off maternity leave, you've been an absolute angel. And I'm so delighted to have you as my co-host.
Oh my God,
I'm
Lee,
so grateful.
You did
We're gonna
not
get
prepare
emotional.
me for that. I'm actually welling up. You do not need to thank me. This is a privilege to do this, and far out though, I have really missed you. But also thanks to our listener for sticking with us, and I'm just so excited that you're back, and I love you.
I'm so excited to be back, and I love you too.
Oh, this is nice.
I've missed it.
Can we just talk about our affections for each other, and we'll do a Twisters conversation later? Nah, I'm too excited to talk about this one.
All right, let's go. Twisters, okay. Very loosely connected to the first film. It's obviously a sequel to the 1996 original, as we said in the beginning. It's not packed to the brim with Easter eggs and references, but there are some really nice nods in the way of like Daisy Edgar-Jones's wardrobe, the tech they use at the beginning of the film, you know, the way they're holding onto the water pipes during one of the tornadoes.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And then, of course, the big climax, which happens at a cinema.
Oh, my God. It's so good.
Yeah, it's
and
really good.
It's meta perfection in multiple levels because it claws back to a similar-ish scene in the first one, but then it's also like you're in a movie theater and the characters are in a movie theater and, you know, shit goes down and it's really, really fun in that sense.
Yeah, it's honouring what came first in these subtle and subversive ways that are very effective and also respectful, I think. You know, it's a really tough line to walk, and we've talked about it multiple times with every sequel and stuff that comes out, but they've done it really well here.
Haven't they just?
And films don't often do it well.
Because, look, I am such a big fan of the original from the mid-90s.
Yeah.
I know you are.
100%.
It's one of those films, though, that just come up in conversation a lot. That you adore Twister, and you bring it up at any chance you can get. Like, oh, my God, I love Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt. Oh, my God, what great characters. And, you know, it was groundbreaking at the time for special effects. It set the bar so high for disaster flicks, you know, from the mid-90s onwards and even today. And it obviously spurred on a sequel. I was really nervous about Twisters.
Yes.
Because it was like, you ask yourself these questions, right, when they announced it. And it was this forever coming follow-up film. It's almost been 30 years. That's a long time between drinks. But why do we need it? Will it honour the original how it's meant to? Will it tarnish it?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you felt really nervous about this film too.
I did too. And what they've done here is they've set it in the same world, following a new generation, but without carbon copying what's come before.
Because we've seen it time and time again. I always think about Jurassic World series and the Jurassic Park series and how much of a lackluster and Jurassic World Dominion brought, because they brought back all these legacy characters and they just basically fucked it.
Or like the Ghostbusters films, the more recent ones where they stuff it to the brim with references and Easter eggs.
Yeah. But like you listed off before, they have found the right balance of capturing lightning in a bottle but offering it with a new perspective and energy for audiences today.
The overarching aspect of the original that was so groundbreaking in 1996 was its soundscape, especially special effects, but also really the sound and how they crafted the sound of the tornadoes, the oil tanker exploding, lightning hitting. Like, this whole soundscape was just incredible. And apparently in the first film, I don't know if you know this, but it was a camel moaning slowed right down.
Why is that so funny? Really?
Well, I don't know what how do you describe a camel sound? It's a moan. It's like a moan.
Watch Twister.
Yeah, exactly. But then they've slowed it right down. And also the sound design was just so bass heavy. Apparently it destroyed some cinema speakers.
For real?
When it was played in 1996.
That's wild.
Really wild, but it shows you how important the sound was in this film. And in the first film, they also used silence to great effect. You know, the tornado became a character in itself that was slowly emerging from the sky or over the horizon and then building and building and building and coming to destroy everything in its path and almost coming after Helen Hunt, like her character says. It's coming after me.
You've never seen it miss this house and miss that house and come after you.
They had that tension and that anticipation ramped right up with that deathly quiet and then building to a roar. In this sequel, they've worked really hard to recreate that feeling, but unfortunately I found it drowned out by the constant soundtrack.
Ah, okay.
It's a really banging soundtrack. I want to be really clear about that. It's a really fun soundtrack and it sets the tone and the location. It's like a love letter to Oklahoma, isn't it, the soundtrack?
Yeah.
But it's that incessant modern need, and I'm sorry, I'm really going to sound like a boomer here.
Go on.
Bear with me. It's this need to be constantly stimulated and have something constantly happening, and that energy, like always go, 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 go. And in some scenes in this film, it's really effective. It's needed, right? Chung has actually said that Gone in 60 Seconds was part of his inspiration for this film to capture that high energy tone of the big personality storm chasers and hunting down tornadoes and racing their cars and overtaking and doing all that kind of thing. So it works really effectively in some places, but they didn't leave the breathing room for that silence, that eerie feeling, that anticipation.
Yeah.
Did you feel that?
Oh, you know what? You're making me think about what was missing in the film, and silence was missing. And silence can sometimes, when used effectively, can be deafening because it makes you confront what you're seeing on the screen and feel other things that you may not have sort of expected to arrive at. So yeah, I hear you on that part. I actually quite liked the soundtrack and the soundscape and that it was so intense. So I didn't take out a feeling of, oh, I wish they had done that slightly different, but you know, you obviously had that experience. It's interesting that you bring up Lee Isaac Chung took inspiration from Gone in 60 Seconds because when you think about it, it is almost like a car chase film. They are in cars all the time, literally going at 80 miles, 85 miles an hour, going towards the danger. I always find that just wild. And
even more so in Glen Powell's character, Tyler, who literally drives into tornadoes.
Okay.
Doesn't get close to them. He drives into them.
He goes in them and then he sort of literally burrows into the ground with this insane rig for his ute to keep him obviously on Earth so he doesn't get shot up into the vortex. It is absolutely insane, but somehow that chaos and that absolute overzealousness works.
Yeah, for his character and his group, for sure.
100%.
There is a line actually that Glen Powell's character had that I really liked from this film, and I'm going to put it on my vision board, I think.
Oh.
You don't face your fears, you ride them.
While they're sitting at a rodeo as well.
Yeah, look, it was a tad cliched, but I really liked it, and I think I'm going to make that my new motto.
Yeah, I love that. Good for you. That vision board is taking shape in 2024.
One thing that they brought over from the original film, they brought over a lot of veteran crew members to work on this film too, which I think is really important because they bring that authenticity. But they also brought back the original technical advisor from Twister, who's Kevin Kelleher, to keep the science grounded in reality. And that's really important because it feels real.
Yes.
It doesn't feel far-fetched and silly and over the top, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You love a film like that sometimes.
Yeah.
But this could really happen.
Which is exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yes.
And just on that, I wouldn't say a lot of science talk, but they obviously take some time to justify and explain the science behind what they're trying to do in taming tornadoes and chase them and the tech that helps them do all of that. But I felt like it was really digestible for the audience, for lay people like you and I, if you don't take offense to that, but obviously we're not scientists or weather scientists or whatever they're called, meteorologists.
Yeah.
But it felt easy to be like, okay, I understand what they're doing and I get it, even though I don't fully understand.
Yeah.
We can root for these characters and hope that they see an outcome that they're achieving because you understand it enough.
And all the characters are really intelligent.
Yes.
Even the ones that you would think on the surface are a bit flighty and silly and just, rough and ready.
Because they present that way initially, right?
Yeah. But they all really do know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They're all smart.
And, as one of the things that I really liked is every character is a great ensemble piece. Yes, you have Glen Powell in there and you have Daisy Edgar-Jones, who we'll talk about later, but it is an ensemble film. There's groups of people aiming to do and arrive at the same solution, which is, help people, but also have a really good time while doing that. And I just love the energy of that ensemble and the personalities that come with it. Great energy, but also really intelligent too.
And the film also addresses real climate change issues, of course. You can't have a film like this in this day and age that doesn't address climate change and how the technical innovations are being developed to combat the damage that we've done to our planet.
Yeah. Do you think on that, did you feel that they balanced did it feel preachy to you, or was it just enough surface level going?
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, which is good. Because I've heard Lee Isaac Chung say, I hated being preached to watching movies like this when I was growing up. So he hopes that he found that balance where it's important to call out those things, but also you're here to have a good time at the cinema mainly.
It would be weird if they didn't. It's a disaster film about weather.
Yes.
It's one of the most prominent issues in our world today. Like you have to address it. You can't get around it. But one thing that is just so important is Chung is a huge fan of the original movie, as you mentioned. Who isn't, really?
I don't know them. Don't want to know them.
Don't know them. Fun fact, just getting off topic here.
Go on.
Did you know that Twister was one of the first films to be put on DVD in the US when DVDs first hit the scene?
That's a throwback, Lee.
Yeah. There was a selection of 32 films that were first made available on DVD, and Twister was one of them.
See, it was a trailblazer in many ways.
Yeah, there you go.
How good.
Anyway.
Back on Lee Isaac Chung.
We've talked about this before, but it's so important in the audience feeling connected to what's happening on screen that the filmmaker is passionate about what they're doing. It's more than a job. You want it to be more than a job. When there's passion behind the project, it comes through the screen and it just hits you straight in the face.
Yeah. You really can tell that he is a fan of the original because he captures the essence and the tone in his own film. And he's got experience behind him, right?
I was going to say that. It's not only being a fan, it's lived experience.
Yeah. So he grew up in Arkansas on the border of Arkansas and Oklahoma. So he experienced tornadoes growing up. So he brings a unique perspective to the film from that lens alone, other than being a fan of the film and a very talented filmmaker.
I'd read that his first tornado experience was while his family was living in a trailer on their newly purchased land. So how terrifying.
What a welcome.
How terrifying would that have been? No basement, nowhere to shelter in place. They just took off and tried to outrun it.
And that is terrifying. And I think that's a feeling that you take out of this film, that he presents the terror. I mean, the film, in my opinion, and I've seen it twice now, it almost opens up as a horror film.
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely terrifying what happens, and it sets up obviously the course that the film takes.
Yeah.
He really captures that terror along with experiencing something like that.
I mean, obviously we know Chung from his Oscar-nominated Minari film, which was also deeply personal. He's always wanted to direct a blockbuster like this, he said, surprisingly. Yeah. After 13 years as an independent filmmaker, it could be very easy to pigeonhole him. And he almost was, if it wasn't for the producer, Frank Marshall, asking his wife, Kathleen Kennedy, if he could do the job because Chung had directed an episode of The Mandalorian.
Yes. And obviously he had come off the success of Minari because he was nominated twice himself for original screenplay and best direction. And he was ready to throw in the towel, apparently. He was ready to move on from filmmaking because he couldn't see a sort of sustainable future for himself.
No, And then now here he is.
Yeah.
Fortunate turn of events, and he's directing one of the biggest blockbusters of this year.
I really, really hope that it brings in the dollary dues.
Dollary dues.
Can I ask a question? It's maybe too early in the episode to ask this, but look, we've waited almost 30 years for this film. Do you think it could become another film? Like, do you think there could be a third film in this?
Look, in this day and age, probably, because that's what you do, but it's exhausting.
You run the risk of it just being far too similar. Like, what else could they really explore outside of what they're already exploring? Does that make sense?
Yeah. They didn't really set it up for a cliffhanger or anything, which I like. I hate when films are set up as a cliffhanger.
It ended perfectly, I think.
I think it ended quite well.
Yeah. Anyway, food for thought. Be interested in you, listener, if you think after you see the film.
If you want to see another one.
If you want to see another one or you think, oh yeah, definitely it's the writings on the wall, I'm on the fence.
Well, we didn't really need this one.
No, but fuck, I'm glad that we got it.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. We didn't need this.
It is the kind of film, because it's very science-based and grounded in the technology and the issues facing our world, that it can be updated.
Yes.
And I like that it wasn't just remade.
And I almost think that almost 30 years was the right amount of time to wait, because enough had changed in technology, and the whole climate crisis that we're going through is front and center. And I think it was just lightning in a bottle that this movie came out in 2024, personally.
I'm still personally salty that Helen Hunt didn't get to direct her Twister movie.
She was going to direct a Twister movie?
There was going to be a sequel.
I don't know this.
Years ago.
Really?
But they wouldn't let her direct. It was a time when, I guess, the women can't direct.
That is so infuriating.
There was some gender politics going on there, and she wasn't allowed to direct. And her condition was that she would do another one if she could direct it, and they didn't have faith in her. And God damn them for not having faith in her.
That is so disappointing.
I would have liked her to have been involved in this one too. I don't think she was.
I didn't see her in any of the credits in any way. But I'm sure she's watching as a fan and enjoying it. I hope she enjoys it.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be like, maybe she will make the third one happen.
Maybe.
She'll be like, move over, Chung. My time.
Well, Joseph Kosinski was meant to direct this film.
He was, yeah.
Originally.
Yeah, because that's how Glen Powell got involved, because he was being directed by Joseph in Top Gun Maverick, which sent him in the stratosphere a couple of years ago.
A very similar character to his character.
Yeah, quite similar.
On the surface.
But just more grounded rather than in the air. Although, there's a bit of flying going on. Yeah, and so Joseph moved on from the project, didn't he? But I guess that's how Glen Powell got involved with that connection.
Speaking of characters and actors, let's jump into that section of the episode. Kate, played by Daisy Edgar-Jones, who we've seen in Where the Crawdads Sing.
Yeah.
You can check out our review of that film on all good podcast platforms.
Oh, and you also interviewed the director.
I did too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Was I reminding you?
You also interviewed the director of this film.
Oh, I did.
Which we haven't mentioned.
How come we haven't mentioned? Yeah, so that's available to listen to, friends. And, in a couple of days, depending on when you're listening to this, we'll have the video interview up on YouTube too to check out.
It's a very, very impressive interview with Oscar-nominated Lee Isaac Chung.
He was delightful.
Really delightful.
Really delightful.
Anyway, so this character, Kate, this girl, she's hanging out in NYC. She's hiding in New York City, licking her wounds after graduate studies to get funding for her invention to reduce a tornado. And it all ends in tragedy.
Yeah, tame a tornado.
She wants to tame a tornado. Yeah. She also attended the same university as Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton's characters. So there's a nice little Easter egg.
I like that you've uncovered that.
Yes.
Nice.
She has this natural instinct for weather patterns, having grown up on the tornado alley, and she has a personal passion for changing the world. So that's driving her.
Yes. What's really great about this character, and of course the performance that Daisy Edgar-Jones brings to it, is that she's a multi-layered, complex character. She's suffered real trauma at the beginning of the film, and she's juggling PTSD all these years later. The film then jumps 5 years, so characters have moved on, and then they all sort of come back together in some way to fight the good fight with the tornadoes. And that's just a really interesting layer of her character, that she's not only exploring trying to save the world, but then her facing her fears, like you said before, that sort of Glen Powell's character helps her do.
Riding them, I believe.
Ride them.
It's not face them. Don't face them. You ride them.
Ride them.
So she meets this cowboy social media star in Glen Powell, character named Tyler, who seems to be only interested in getting close enough to a tornado to light it up with fireworks, which is actually pretty impressive visually in the film.
Yes.
It looks pretty good.
I think that was definitely, Tim, pick your jaw up off the floor. Because I was like, are they really shooting fireworks up a tornado? It's fucking awesome.
It's pretty cool, yeah. How is it, though, that Glen Powell is so hot, but also... That's it. That's the end of the question.
How is that?
No, but also something about his characters makes you want to punch them in their shit-eating grin. You know what I mean? Like, he's so hot, but his characters are also so fucking
It's like you
annoying.
hate him for being so hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's
You
sort
hate
of,
to love him.
have you felt that about his character in Top Gun?
Yes.
And then in Anyone But You?
Oh, I actually haven't watched it.
Oh, you haven't?
But
Okay.
you.
I'm not going to encourage you to go, I didn't really like that film.
Oh,
But
no.
anyway.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, I think you'll have a very similar, actually probably a more visceral feeling to punch him in the face in that one because he's very unlikable, especially at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, his character does get more like
He's got a great arc.
And this is no way directed at Glen Powell because I'm sure he's very lovely.
We won't punch him.
It's purely the characters.
Yes, just to clarify.
Just to clarify.
He's one of us.
Yeah.
They're just like us.
But both the character and Glen Powell are very hot, just to be clear.
Yeah, I mean, there is a very appreciated but really unnecessary sort of white, wet T-shirt contest shot of him walking to his pickup truck leaving the farm. Is it
forgot about
also
that.
in slow motion?
I laughed at that too. I was like, oh my God. But I really appreciated it also.
The best part, you're talking about the lack of silence. There was a moment of silence in that where he gets in the car, he's got his white cowboy hat on, and it's in the rain, obviously, and he shuts the door, and you just hear the drip, 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 drip of the water falling off his hat onto the car seat. Anyway, I found that moment of silence effective to cool down a bit.
Moment of silence for Glen Powell's hotness.
We'll light a candle for his hotness tonight.
In all seriousness, though, Powell actually got to spend some time with the late Bill Paxton working on this film called Red Wing, and he gave him such valuable insights into the filming of the original and his character, which Powell has obviously carried with him in his performance.
Wow, what a privilege.
Yeah, but I think it does come across. He has that insight into how these films should work.
He has an undeniable charisma, and I think it plays out really well in the character of Tyler Owens and
The Riz.
The Riz.
He's
Oh
got
God.
the Riz.
Are we really saying that? The Riz. Anyway,
I'm just trying to backpedal from my
Probably
boomer
kids.
status
yeah.
by saying lots of buzzwords like the Riz.
But somehow hearing you say the Riz just puts you back in that boomer bucket. I don't know.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, don't apologize. Just don't do it again.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, but his charisma is great, and the chemistry between him and Daisy Edgar-Jones is really exciting.
It is, yeah.
Because they sort of don't understand each other very much at the beginning in terms of, like you mentioned, how intelligent each of them are and that they have a lot of value to give in the fight of chasing storms and trying to tame them and helping people. And I really liked them as characters and actors discovering that about each other throughout, and they just became a great team
They really
to see
did.
on screen.
Yeah. Then we've got Harvey, who's played by Anthony Ramos, who starts out like a bit of a Philip Seymour Hoffman character in the beginning of the
Totally.
film, doesn't he? Like
Yeah.
Dusty. And then he moves into like a Carrie Elwes type
Yes.
buttoned up suit.
I love these connections you're making.
Well, a lot of the characters do have a lot of parallels to the original film, which I really liked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, that's just another way that they're choosing to honor the original without
Even the
it.
caravan that they use,
Oh, yes.
cruising down the highway in the caravan
Yeah. So true. Oh, my gosh.
with
They've done
music
good.
blaring out the top.
Yeah. Too much music, according to Lee.
So
What's that?
let me take this
Down in
knife out of my back.
Oklahoma. Yeah. I'll stick it in further. Yeah, what did you think of his performance? Because he, again, like a lot of these characters, has a really interesting arc too.
He does. Like, he wants to do the right thing, but he's also trying to get his own business off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost this three-way love triangle going on between Harvey, Tyler, and
Yep.
Kate. I don't know, how did you feel about that?
I thought it was fine. I think they pushed it as far as they could without I'd never...
Without turning it into another subplot.
Yeah, exactly. That's such a good way of putting it. It was just an underlying sort of sizzle, and I was happy with how it played out.
Yeah. I mean, Harvey obviously has this huge affection for Kate. They've been friends for many, many years. They've been through something really, really important together. But he's always been friend-zoned. And then this big, arrogant showboat comes along with his white T-shirt in the rain. And were you Team Harvey or Team Tyler?
Do you know, I was equal.
Yeah.
I think it took me a while to come around to Team Harvey, and I was more Team Tyler quicker than I thought. I thought he was just going to be in that sort of insufferable bucket for way longer. So I found that really interesting in how he was written.
I actually enjoyed the chemistry more between Anthony Ramos and Daisy Edgar-Jones as friends.
Right.
It felt real. It felt lived in. It felt believable.
It did feel real, and it's probably partly because great actors, but what they went through. And it's also, I really like in films when characters have a history and they reconnect many years later and you can feel that they were friends and they're just, they just have this sort of, let's just get on with it. Like
this shorthand. Yeah.
Yeah. Like riding a bike, like they just fall into place.
Speaking of the Cary Elwes types, David Corenswet is in this film. He is like a carbon copy of Jonas from the original, isn't he? Even in his mannerisms and the way he's dressed and the way he behaves and the way he stands there, like, all cranky with everyone, doesn't like anyone, it's out for big business and money, really.
That's all he's got his eyes on. He's a bit cranky in this, isn't he? He's unlikable.
He is unlikable.
He is an unlikable character, and by design, and I think that's fine. There aren't really many villains in this film, but I guess you could call him a sort of semi-villain?
Yeah.
Just for what he represents?
In the same way that Cary Elwes as Jonas in the original film was unlikable. There wasn't much redeeming about him. I mean, he wasn't evil. He just wasn't very likable.
Now, I always find it really interesting when you see actors in films that they've banked and made a little while ago and they come out as you're approaching a really big project that they are cast in.
Like Superman.
Yes. And we're seeing a lot of behind the scenes photos and things at the moment. A lot of reactions to his take as Superman, Clark Kent, the hair, the cape, the suit, what it looks like.
Very controversial. But I do remember that Henry Cavill went through the same thing when he became Superman and he put all the naysayers to rest. Because
you have to. It'll be exhausting.
Well, yeah, but then also he proved everyone wrong because he was so fantastic, and now he is the definitive Superman, and everyone's like, oh, you can't walk in his red boots. Yeah,
I can't walk in his tidy red undies. But actors would experience the same thing. Probably even worse, those that take on the mantle of James Bond, which we still don't know who's the new Bond. Anyway,
Aaron Taylor-Johnson.
But you said something interesting about David, because tell me, are you sold as him as Superman?
No.
And I found that really surprising.
Looks wise, he looks like a mix of Henry Cavill and the actor that played Superman in the series, Tom
Wellington.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
I loved that series.
Yeah, I liked it
Smallville.
too. Yeah, Smallville. I did like it. He does look like if the two of them got together and could have a baby, that would be David. That would be David Corenswet, and with a bit of Christopher Reeve mixed in.
Yeah. I mean, they have very consistently, at least aesthetically, cast the role of Clark Kent Superman over the decades.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I would just reserve judgment. You can get caught up in the sort of the noise. I don't know how to really feel about him as Superman, but I'm excited to see what James Gunn brings.
In the behind the set photos that we've seen, we're getting a bit off topic here, but
that's fine.
Just slightly.
Seems to be common in this episode.
I think a lot of it has to do with the suit that people have seen and the suit not fitting properly.
And it's a bit loose.
But it's going to look very different on screen.
100%.
I mean, have some faith in James Gunn. He delivers time and again.
He does. Have faith, friends.
All right, back to Twisters. There's also the group of wild storm chasers, the ensemble cast, Katie O'Brien, Tunde Adebimpe, Harry Haddon Patton, Kiernan Shipka, Daryl McCormick, and Nick Dodani.
Yeah, I love the energy of that group. The
I
Tornado Wranglers.
Yeah, I hope I didn't butcher any of those names. I'm sorry. They're such a collection of characters who are all really fun, all really unique. Also, have parallels to the first film, which is really fun. Yeah, it was as you said before, it was a good ensemble film.
Yeah, I want to call out Harry Haddon Patton as Ben, because he offered moments of levity.
Yeah.
This film doesn't take itself all that seriously, although there are serious moments. There's a lot at stake. It does really well at setting the scale and the stake, but I really liked his moments of comedy, and
Yes.
he was almost like us. If we were thrown in this situation, how would we react
Yes.
physically and like audibly?
Yes.
And that was quite fun.
Just on the levity, I was going to say, action films lately have this tendency to take the piss out of themselves, poke fun at themselves.
Thor: Love and Thunder.
Well, lots of films. But that seems to be how like the action genre itself can't be taken seriously anymore for some reason.
It's probably partly to fault Fast and Furious.
Yeah, but also like it's a multi-billion-dollar genre. Like people go to these films to see the action. Be a bit more earnest in it. You don't need to cut the tension and make it funny and take the piss out of yourself. Oh no, we're being silly. We know this isn't real. But I think in this film, like you said, they don't do that.
Okay.
They're very earnest in their action,
Yeah.
and the levity is brought by this character Ben, who is a journalist on a ride along with the tornado chasers.
Yeah.
And it's good.
It is good fun. It is good fun. Okay, I'm glad. Where
no.
you were heading with that, I thought, oh no, did you think it was too levity? Levitai?
It was levitating too
Levitating too much? Oh, sorry.
All that was to say, it was a very long-winded way of saying it wasn't being too silly.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. It was a good action flick in the traditional sense, is what I meant to say.
100% agree.
So, production designer Patrick Sullivan returned to create this world along with other veterans from the first movie, as I said.
Yeah.
And that's all. It's really important because you want fresh eyes to take it in a new direction. But you also want people who know this world and understand it and understand what made it connect with audiences the first time around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think they've delivered on that?
I think the aesthetic of this film and the experience that the actors have in it and their characters is amazing.
Yeah, I talked about the film being a love letter to Oklahoma before, and Chung was very adamant that it should be filmed there, even though the big suits were pushing for financially cheaper Georgia. Everything gets filmed in Georgia because of the tax breaks. Yeah, they filmed it in Oklahoma, and I'm so glad they did because it makes it feel more authentic. They also began filming during storm season.
Isn't that insane?
It's a massive challenge to add onto the challenge of already filming a movie. So they had to put safety protocols in place for sheltering a huge team really quickly. And they had just a team watching the radar constantly for shifting weather patterns.
So there was their own Twisters movie happening behind the scenes, which is the story that I also want to see. When I spoke to Lee Isaac Chung, I asked, like, is there a documentary about you making the movie because you had these teams of meteorologists and people with safety protocols because they're out in the middle of nowhere, needing to be safe in case a hectic storm came through. And he was like, well, the documentarian sort of kept their distance with me because I was directing it to focus on that.
Yeah.
So he goes, I actually don't know. So we'll have to wait and find out.
But I'm saying this in big capital letters now. Authenticity.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Authenticity. They're doing the thing in the place during storm season. I'm not saying like you should do that every time. Like there's something to be said for CGI and practicality and all that stuff. But it just adds something a little bit extra to the movie going experience.
100. I couldn't agree more. It's shooting on location will always be better. Shooting on real sets that they make in these locations to get the shot. Like everywhere this camera points, they're in a real place.
Yes.
Obviously elevated by additional elements in special and visual effects. That's fine. It makes sense. But it just gives it that, tangible feeling. And I think part of that experience, that visual experience comes from the fact that they shot the movie on film and not digital. And I just freaking love that.
Yes, that's something we haven't spoken about. And in the original film, they actually bought and destroyed a section of a town and houses. Like they paid people out for their houses, destroyed the houses, and then rebuilt this town, like downtown area of this town. They've done that on a lesser scale here. So they didn't need to be doing that, which is fine. Like you don't have to. We talk about practicality, but you don't have to destroy a town to make it authentic. They kind of worked smarter, not harder here. They ordered all this demolition rubbish and they used existing footage to be like clever about it in some places, as well as working with some existing homes in the filming area. They actually dug a pool into a motel's lawn for an important scene in this film. So
It's a
that
thrilling
pool,
scene.
that pool
Wasn't there.
didn't exist before the filming crew came in.
Wow.
They fully reinforced it with like proper pool plaster, made it all really realistic so they could drop shit into it from a great height.
Mhm.
And then they removed the whole thing afterwards and restored the lawn. How crazy is that?
That's really nice of them. Nice fresh green grass left behind.
There you
Well,
go.
I'm glad they didn't leave behind what you saw in the film, because that was a shit show.
Yeah, Soz, here you go. Here's a broom.
Here's a broom. Good luck. Here's my card.
Yeah, well, again, all that stuff is just authenticity. Yeah.
And obviously, because Lee Isaac Chung came from that area, grew up in that area, he had a unique sort of connection to the land and the wheat fields and all of that. So you could tell that wherever he pointed the camera, that he was familiar with it, and it
Yes.
just offered a great experience for you.
He spent a lot of time finding the right location, even though he was being pushed into a different state.
He entertained that for a while.
He tried.
And then he's like, no, we've got to do it over here. And he
Yeah.
goes, I think very, very quickly they found most of the locations because the vision was there, and that's where the story is. So of course they're
Exactly
going to
right.
find the right stuff.
Exactly right. Oh, Tim, I could talk about this movie for a lot longer, but
Can we? No, I think I'm out of things to say.
I think it's time to wrap up. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Twisters is a textbook example of how to explore a beloved IP, honor it where needed, and create its own path as a standalone film that works on so many levels. Twisters is the kind of summer blockbuster you sign up for. Exciting action, lovable characters, and high stakes that delivers on spectacle as much as it does substance. It shouldn't have been as good as it was, but I'm glad that it was.
It had no business being this good.
How rude. I'm going to rate Twisters 4 popcorn kernels out of 5.
Good on you. Good on you. Pat on the back for you.
You.
Twisters delivers what you want from a blockbuster disaster film: big action set pieces, exciting visual effects, and characters that you care about. It stands on its own without the first as an incredibly entertaining and well-made movie. But if we're making comparisons, it doesn't blow the first away, in my opinion. That's up to you whether that's going to be an important factor in your enjoyment. Personally, I'm delighted that Chung and his team have produced a sequel that truly does sit in the same world without being derivative or stomping all over our beloved nostalgia with its muddy boots. It's a great time at the movies. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 popcorn kernels too.
Nice. I love that summation. Now, Twisters is in Australian cinemas from July 11. So Twisters is in Australian cinemas from July 11. And don't forget to listen to our interview with director Lee Isaac Chung on your preferred podcast platform now.
And on YouTube very soon.
Very soon, friends. Very soon. Thank you so much for listening, guys. It's been great having you.
We'll catch you next time for more of season 13. We have a website, popcornpodcast.com. Make sure you check it out. We've got all our episodes up there for you to listen to.
If you'd like to get to know us a little better, there's an About Us section, and we run ticket giveaways. So keep an eye on the website for more information.